Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be giving you a full in-depth betting breakdown of UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Teixeira. And before we get into this, make sure you subscribe, smash the like button, leave a comment, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a video. And without further ado, let's get right into this. So, with the first matchup of the night between Melissa Martinez and Fatima Klein, we have an absolute lock with Fatima Klein, who happens to be turning 25 on fight day, and it seems as if the UFC is kind of giving her a present in this fight by providing her with an absolute layup. But unfortunately for us, that money line is just absolutely unplayable, even for parlays. However, I do see her getting a finish in this one, so if you're one of those guys that always plays the overs in women's fights, I would caution against it. And in fact, I think it would make more sense to target Fatima Klein inside the distance, as you can get her at, get the submission at plus 250 and her TKO at plus 450. And I think that's worth a sprinkle because I do see her finishing this girl. Okay, so moving up on the card, we got Mike Davis taking on Mitch Ramirez. And for me, this fight is a complete pass. I see Davis winning this one, but there's literally no value. And not to mention, Davis didn't really look himself last time, so I don't see a world where playing him at minus 1,000 makes any sense. If anything, a tiny sprinkle of maybe 1/10 of a unit at Mitch for plus 700 makes more sense, or even the decision prop for plus 1,200 makes a little bit of sense. But I don't think Davis is that washed despite his last performance, and I do believe he's better everywhere. So for this one, I'm going to have to pass altogether. Alright, next up we got Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Walter Walker. And yeah, like I said in the breakdown, I like the dog here. I see Walter getting takedowns with relative ease, and once he finds his way on top, that very well could be the fight. So yeah, I think there's great value simply on the Walker money line, where he's currently sitting at about a plus 175, which I think is honestly a blessing. I think the fight should be at pick'em odds. But if you're a true degen, you can target his submission prop, which is sitting at about a plus 600, which isn't the greatest value, but it's definitely live here, as Walter is one of the few heavyweights with real jiu-jitsu skills. Okay, so moving up on the card, we got Eduarda Mora taking on Lauren Murphy. And similarly with the Fatima Klein fight, I wouldn't recommend you guys going out there and just blindly betting the over here. If Lauren comes into this one looking beyond washed, which I suspect she will, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Mora is able to find her way on top here and find either a submission or a ground and pound finish. But I do see this fight having a higher possibility of making it to the final bell than the Klein fight, as Lauren Murphy is notoriously durable. But I just see her age catching up with her and her getting stopped via ground and pound. I really do. But for the most part, I would probably avoid betting on this fight. But if you're so inclined, I think Mora is a solid parlay piece who should come through with the W for you. Alright, next up we got Jake Matthews versus Chidi Njokuani. And like I said in the breakdown, this is definitely the closest fight on the card. But ever since I dropped that video, Jake Matthews' moneyline has moved to a slight underdog at about a plus 125. But I still don't think that's amazing value, as I see this fight playing out extremely close. And I wouldn't bet the over either, as both of these guys could find a finish. The only bit of value I saw from the books was the Jake Matthews submission or KO, which are both sitting at a plus 700 respectively. And considering Chidi has been finished in 8 of his 10 losses, I don't think that's a terrible play, but Jake Matthews doesn't have the best finishing instincts in my opinion, so I'd rather see that at like a plus 900 range for me to play it. So for this fight, it's going to be a pass for me. Alright, moving up on the card, we got a couple of old heads going at it in Chris Curtis versus Max Griffin. And guys, I think Chris Curtis at around a minus 300 for his money line and minus 170 for his decision is honestly a steal. I truly don't see any scenario where Chris Curtis loses this one. This fight is going to play out entirely on the feet, and I just see Chris Curtis having the edge everywhere. Except when it comes to the kicks, of course, because Chris just doesn't do those. But in terms of the boxing, which will be 80% of this fight, I see Chris Curtis having the vastly superior defense and volume, which will allow him to coast to a decision victory. And I say decision because both these guys have elite durability, especially Max Griffin. Griffin has never been knocked out on the feet, and Chris Curtis has only been knocked out twice on the feet. But that's only on paper because we all know that the Roman Coppola fight shouldn't have been stopped and was essentially just a knockdown. But I see Chris Curtis' boxing defense being too good for an older and slower Max Griffin to land anything of significance on him. And however, I do think that the best play for this fight would be the over 2.5 rounds at about a minus 275, as I see that essentially as a lock, and it's even better than the Curtis money line. And guys, if you made it this far in the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because that really goes a long way in boosting this video in the algorithm. Okay, making our way to the main card, we have probably one of the most low-level fights in recent memory. We got Junior Tafa taking on Tuco Tokos. And guys, please don't waste your hard-earned money betting on either one of these guys' money lines. I said in my breakdown that if you can get Tafa's knockout at plus money, then maybe there's some value, but the best I've seen on any book is minus 120, so if you're a true degen and you just need to throw down on this one, that's the path I would take, but in my eyes, it just isn't worth it for a fight that could honestly go either way. And even though it pains me to give up on an opportunity to fade Tukos, I'm going to have to pass on this one, unfortunately. All right, next up we have probably my favorite play on the card where we have Vitor Petrino taking on Austin Lane. And yeah, I pretty much think Vitor Petrino's KO is essentially a foregone conclusion at this point. Austin Lane has 6 losses, and all 6 of them are via knockout, and 3 of which come in the last 2 years. So in other words, bro can't take a punch. And when you're fighting an explosive athlete who hits like a Mack truck in Vitor Petrino, it's simply just a recipe for disaster. So with a knockout at minus 380, I think that's honestly a steal and a perfect leg for your parlays. Or if you just want to play it a little bit safer, you can just add Vitor's money line at minus 750 to give your parlay a little more juice, as that is a complete lock. Okay, so next up we got Nate the Train taking on Morgan Charrier. And guys, I like the dog in this one. And on top of that, I believe this is a great live betting opportunity because I see Nate losing the first round and maybe even getting dropped. So going into the second, he may be closer to a plus 700 favorite, depending on how well Morgan is doing. But as the fight drags on, I see Nate dragging Morgan into the fire, and in those kinds of scenarios is where Nate truly thrives. While on the other hand, Morgan only truly excels when he's in the driver's seat. But he is extremely durable, so I'm really liking the Nate by decision, which is currently sitting at about 4-1 odds. But live betting is where you're truly going to be making your money on this one. Because guys, Nate the Train said it best himself. Whoop my ass and see what happens. Expect this guy to be all bloodied up going into the second, but that's exactly where Nate makes his magic happen. So at dog money, give me Nate the Train all day. Alright, so moving on to the feature fight of the night, we got Calvin Kattar taking on the red-hot Steve Garcia. And once again, guys, I'm picking the dog in this one. I think Steve Garcia is too chinny and wild for a guy like Calvin Kattar, who has a combination of elite durability and crispy pocket boxing. As for any bets on this one, it's going to be a pass for me as the fight is currently sitting at a pick'em, and I would want better value on Kattar considering he's on such a skid and Garcia has all the momentum going into this one. But if you're up on the night by the time this fight rolls around, and I'd say putting maybe a quarter unit on the Kattar money line isn't the worst idea in the world. Okay, so next up we got the co-main event of the evening where we have Gabriel Bonfim taking on Steven Wonderboy Thompson. And in this one, I think it's Bonfim all day. I would even pick Bonfim to beat a prime Wonderboy, but now that Wonderboy is 42, we've seen not only his takedown defense, but his chin as well degrade significantly over the past few years. And at minus 400, I think that's a blessing. I think Bonfim should be closer to a minus 500 or even wider. As for props, though, Bonfim's submission is only sitting at a plus 129, which is absolutely disgusting for a submission line. I personally wouldn't play that, even though I do think it happens, but at those odds, I just don't really see much value. Usually you're looking for plus 500 minimum for a submission line, so I think the best course of action is to parlay Gabriel's money line up with another high-confidence pick of yours. Alright, and finally we got the main event of the evening with Derek Lewis taking on Talison Teixeira. And personally, I only like to bet on main events where I'm supremely confident because most of the time the main event features the 2 best fighters on the card, so it's going to play out relatively close. And when you have a Derek Lewis fight, you can never be supremely confident in his opponent because of the nuclear power he possesses in his hands. But with that being said, I do think Teixeira gets it done, and I do think he finds a knockout in this one, as he's shown to have a very good chin, and he's also extremely fast and dynamic in the cage. But if you're going to bet on Talison, just take the money line because it's identical to the knockout prop, both of which are sitting about a minus 200. And if you're all in on Talison with a bunch of parlays and whatnot, I would definitely recommend a slight hedge on Lewis because, like I said, this dude has the ability to put anyone's lights out. Alright guys, that'll do it for this week's betting breakdown, and if you want some parlays, I'm going to have some down in the below in the comments. And while you're down there, make sure to leave a comment of your own, smash the like button, hit subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And as always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.